Good evening, everybody. The Muse fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. Now, if it sounds like I'm a little bit under the weather, well, it's because I am. It's that time of year at the restaurant, and in general, everyone starts getting sick, and I feel like I've picked up a little bit of it. So, if my voice sounds a little bit tired, it's because it is, but no worry, we are going to push right on through because I'm super excited about this particular Are You In? We're getting to the final stretch of the year, which means it's time to start looking at top 50 lists and getting everything ready, but I still have a few awesome RUNs to talk about, as well as one last digging through discography, which I started this week. Hopefully you saw that first part. If not, definitely take a look, because I'm going to be doing a four-parter, and I'm really, really excited about it, and I hope that you are as well. But enough dilly-dallying. It is time to get to the crux of what we are talking about today. So I'm going to start the timer. So tonight we are talking about Muse's newest album entitled Simulation Theory. Now, for those of you who don't know who Muse is, they are an alt-rock / hard rock / art rock, space rock, electronica band from Teignmouth, Devon, England. I have no idea if I said that right, but let's keep on going. Members include Matt Bellamy on lead vocals and guitars, keyboards, pianos, synthesizers, and guitar, Dominic Howard on drums, percussion, synthesizers, and backing vocals, and Chris Wolstenholme on bass guitar, backing and lead vocals, guitars, keyboards, and harmonica. Their previous albums include Showbiz in 1999, Origin of Symmetry in 2001, Absolution in 2003, Black Holes and Revelations in 2006, The Resistance in 2009, The Second Law in 2012, and Drones in 2016. Now, I've been meaning to put out this one for a little bit, and before I did that, I wanted to go back through the discography real quick, because I love Muse. It's one of my favorite bands. I got into them probably around the time that they had Knights of Sidonia on Guitar Hero 3. I know, call me bandwagon if you will. But after that, I remember having a lot of their songs on my MP3 player. I remember singing to Time Is Running Out, to Hysteria, to Knights of Sidonia, to Stockholm Syndrome. I love a lot of their stuff. Particularly the range of Origin of Symmetry, Absolution, Black Holes, and Revelations, and The Resistance. I think that's their four best and most cohesive albums. If I was to pick one right now, I'd probably go Absolution. I love a lot of the stuff on there. So many good songs. The Origin of Symmetry also have some great stuff, like the first 4 or 5 songs, Hyper Music, Newborn, Bliss, a lot of great songs on that album as well. And Revelations definitely has a lot of good stuff with Assassin, Supermassive Black Hole, a lot of really good songs on there as well. The Resistance was the first actual album that I listened to fully, and I love that one too, even though it feels a little bit less hard rock and alternative rock and more mainstream at parts. Now, I want to go back to this again because at the time I remember listening to The Second Law and I remember listening to Drones, and I honestly didn't like either of them. I thought The Second Law was a little bit weird, and I was turned off by the electronic sound. I liked Madness, but that was basically it from that album. And I think that was a time where I really, really hated dubstep, and that last song, the first part of it, just felt so outdated even at that time. And it turned me off. And listen to it again. I still don't like it. I think it's my least favorite album of theirs, but I grew to appreciate some of the songs. Drones, I think, try to go back to that more alternative rock style, but the problem was it was a little bit over the top even in Muse's standards. And the arrangements were pretty simplistic and kind of cheesy at times. Like, Psycho is butt rock at its finest. I like Reapers. I like a lot of the stuff from that, but there's a lot of songs that kind of miss. And I think with their concept, they kind of just hit it over the head. They try to make it as blatant as possible. Oh, you are one of the drones and you need to escape. And I thought the lyrics were bad. I thought a lot of the lyrics were cheesy and over the top. But I wanted to go back through that again because I wanted to listen and see where I can rank this, because I really, really like this at the beginning, spoilers, I really liked it, but I wanted to make sure where this all fits. And I think at some point in time, I will do a full on digging through the discography with this band. I might do it at the beginning of the year. I have a lot of stuff that I want to do. But anyways, also, having no internet or very limited internet is a bitch. It really is annoying. It's been pushing a lot of my plans back, so hence why I'm doing this now instead of last week. But anyways, so I listened to Dig Down, I listened to Something Human, I listened to The Dark Side, and Thought Contagion when they came out, and I really enjoyed Dig Down, and I really enjoyed The Dark Side. Something Human it didn't really do much for me, but I was really excited by the sound that they were putting out, wanted to check it out, and here are my thoughts. So, I think from the get-go you kind of get what the idea of what this sound is going to be. Algorithm is this intro song, kind of intro song if you will. First half of it is instrumental, and then it brings in the vocals. And it's kind of a mix of earlier stuff and later stuff. So you get from the beginning this electric feel. It's particularly the drum machine kind of sounds like something out of Nine Inch Nails, very industrial at times. But at the same time, you do get the classical sense of a lot of the stuff of their past that you hear from their past works, like stuff off of Origin of Symmetry or Absolution. There's even some piano fills in there as well. There's some string parts. And the melody itself is very classically approached, and especially with the sus going to the third at the end of the chorus. It's a very interesting opener that gives you an idea of what you're going to be in for throughout this album. I will say the first part of the album is fantastic. The Dark Side, one of my favorite songs, has a great drum feel. I love the electronics on here. I love the chord progression. The melody is great. The chorus melody is fan-flippin-tastic. And just a lot of really good energy. Algorithm is very somber at parts and very subdued. Dark Side just kicks it into overdrive, and you start to get that dark-ish, but also very energetic and very fun songs. It's very catchy. It's one of my favorite ones on there. It even has a guitar solo, which I really, really enjoy. Pressure, it's a little bit more mainstream than the previous songs. It has this more anthemic rock vibe to it. The guitar is a little bit grating at points, and the verses aren't as interesting as the chorus. When the chorus comes in, it is so much fun. There's a lot of anthemic nature to it. Again, it keeps this nice party vibe going, and it's not the most interesting arrangement, but it's a lot of fun. Then you get Propaganda, which is a very cheesy song, but also a lot of fun. This one starts really weird with this voice that's going propaganda in a very low voice, like propaganda, propaganda. It's cheesy. It's really cheesy. But what makes it work is this very seductive song. It's a very seductive song talking about propaganda, and I think that feel works really well, though I always hate it when the propaganda part comes back in. It's not really interesting. I think, though, the seductive nature of this song works very well. Then you get to Break It To Me, which is another one of these ones that meshes the rock side with the electronics very well. Right from the beginning, you get this electronic tinged guitar with these also electronic parts as well. That works very cool, and it gives this really interesting feel. Not necessarily Middle Eastern, but it uses kind of like those scales to make for this very cool feel. And the staccato melody is really nice, and then it builds in this other part to there too, which other melody line while this staccato part comes back in, and then the chorus is really cool. It uses the electronics very well. Comparatively, the second law, which didn't really need that feel, or it didn't always work because it wasn't the whole entire idea. Since they introduced the electronics from the get-go and did it in such a nice way, the chorus itself is really, really interesting to listen to, and the riff itself, the notes are really cool, and it has, again, this Middle Eastern flair to it, but still uses the electronics and the auto-tune very well, in a very nice way, rather than a blatant way. And then there's this very interesting, like, guitar turntable-ish solo, which I think is really, really cool and adds a really nice touch to this song. Unfortunately, from there, it starts to get not as interesting, or the arrangements themselves aren't as great. Going from Something Human, which is probably the most subdued song on the album, the lightest song on the album. It's a lot of acoustic guitar, and not a very interesting arrangement to me. It's a nice sentiment song, but it's not really too interesting. It's a song about being on the road and missing the people back home, and the lyrics are nice, and it changes over time, talking about the number of miles they are away and how long it will be until they get home, because they need that touch, that Something Human. And it's a nice sentiment, but I think it kind of gets a little bit too cheesy when you get those organs coming in, because it starts feeling like a gospel song, and it feels a little bit over the top. So it doesn't really work for me, but it's not the worst song in the album. But then you start getting to these a little bit more simplistic, anthemic songs, and some parts work, some parts don't. Thought Contagion, it's a lot of fun on the chorus. It's really, really memorable and sticks in your mind. But I would say that the verses aren't really interesting. Neither is the drum part on it. It kind of tries to use this triplet beat that you hear on rap songs nowadays, but it doesn't really work with the song. But like the Thought Contagion part is really cool, and the "you've been bitten by," I love that. Kind of like with Propaganda, where it's using the idea of propaganda and using it in a sensual way, as if you were being hit on or attracted to a woman, and the enticement of that, kind of like the enticement of propaganda. Thought Contagion uses this idea too of spreading thoughts through contamination, and whether they're right or not, they are prevalent because their voice is more powerful. And it's kind of being like, if you watch the music video, it's these vampires that are biting people to affect them with their thoughts. So I like the feel of this song, and it is a little bit dirty, kind of like Propaganda, but I would say the verses aren't interesting. Get Up and Fight is probably the most cliched song on the album, but I love the verse stuff. I love the bass line, and it's the most interesting bass line. There's a lot of interesting electronic parts on there. I think it's a really, really nice song until you get to the anthemic and very simple chorus, talking about getting up and fighting. The melody isn't bad. It's really catchy, but it's very simplistic in comparison to a lot of stuff they've done before. This is probably the most pop rockish song that they've ever had, which is saying something. Blockades, though, is kind of feels back to their previous stuff. So what I mean by that is, when I first heard this song, I get a tinge of stuff off of Origin of Symmetry, particularly Bliss, with the synthesizer lines on the verses. I love the feel of that. And a lot of people don't really like this song. A lot of people say that this is the worst song on the album. I don't think it is. I think there is a lot of stuff to like from the previous albums, but I would say it doesn't do it as well. But I love the anthemic chorus, where it's a lot of like, fight, test, be the best. Like, a lot of really cool, just one word, feeling like everyone's chanting things. It feels nice on this album without being too cheesy. And I like the first time through, they go the fourth to the minor third, and then they go fourth to the major third. Really nice idea. Then you get Dig Down, which is my favorite song on the album. I think this one is a lot of fun. It's one of the most electronic ones, but it works. It works very well, and I think it's because of the layering of the parts. So you get the whoa, 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 whoa part at the beginning, kind of feeling a little bit like Madness, with the madness. But I think it works very well. I think the layering of strings later, and the different rhythm, and then these guitar parts works very well. And then it keeps building very well on this song. comparatively to everything else on the album, I think this one builds the best. And yeah, is it simplistic? Yes, but I think it's really catchy and really interesting. I love the chorus. It has these gospel tinges that work very well on this song. I also really like the music video for it, where Matt's trying to be like Max Headroom. But all in all, my favorite song on the album. And unfortunately, you get to my least favorite song, which is the closer. The Void feels kind of out of place. Everything else felt a little bit seductive, felt fun for the most part on a lot of these songs, even if they're anthemic or very seductive or dark or sinister. This one just feels sinister without the energy. And maybe that's what they're going for. Like a song called The Void, that is not as fun as everything else around there. But I just don't think it works very well. And also it has one of the worst choruses I have ever heard. It's literally just him saying, "They are wrong, they are wrong, they are wrong, baby." And he just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. It doesn't work. You change up the melody, doesn't really matter. It's literally repetitive. And I think it could have worked if the music behind it was a little bit more interesting, but it's not. And then, weirdly, at the end, it just throws in the wubs at the end. Like, after like a 4.5-minute song, it throws in those wubs that don't really need to be there. And maybe it's trying to show that, like, the simulation idea again and breaking away from it. But to me, it's not super interesting. The lyrics themselves, throughout the most part of this album, it's mostly about the concept of breaking through a simulation or breaking away from the norm that is happening in the world. Mostly with all the crazy shit that's happening. So Algorithm is talking about that simulation and breaking away from it. But a lot of them are talking about fighting, and you get a lot of that stretch at the end with Get Up and Fight, with Blockades and Dig Down. All those have those feels of you need to keep fighting and not backing down. And I think it's weird that it's those most simplistic ones that throw that idea. There are some different ones, like The Void itself is talking about we need to be the change that we can believe in. Kind of like how we, at the end of Eat the Elephant this year, has that same type of vibe. You also get some more personal ones. Dark Side talking about dealing with depression and breaking free from it. Pressure is talking about not trying to be what people tell you to be. In more particular for Muse, it's more of trying to go back to the stuff that made them popular. And not necessarily wanting to be that. And then Break It To Me is talking about having someone not sugarcoat the truth. And mostly, it's if we put it into what's happening nowadays, it's not trying to package fake news or not sugarcoating the things that are happening in this world, but actually dealing with them. For the most part, though, it is talking about this idea of simulation and breaking through and fighting. It's not the most interesting lyrics, but I think it's much better than the previous album. It's not trying to hit you over the top at most times with their work. And I think there's some interesting lyrical ideas with the ideas of propaganda and thought contagion. Overall, I really, really enjoy this album. I think that the latter half of the album doesn't hold up as well. I love Dig Down, but the other ones are probably some of the weaker ones on the album. And I think it has to do with the more anthemic nature, and because of that, it becomes more simplistic. I think at the beginning, it takes a lot of really good ideas from what's happening now in music and comparatively to what they have done before. I think the meshing of the electronics works much better than it does in the second law, but afterwards you get a little bit too much into the very simplistic nature of a lot of pop songs today, and because of that, there isn't as much that they can do with it, and that just might be them borrowing ideas that just didn't work out. I think it's much better than the second law. I think it's much better than Drones, and does it touch the other four that I love? No, but it's a nice step in the right direction. If only some of these anthemic ones were a little bit more interesting, because they've been able to do very anthemic work and make it interesting and make it sophisticated. And maybe it's just they didn't want to do that. I totally understand that. But because of the lack of interest in some of these, it makes for some very cliched songs that Muse shouldn't be doing, at least from what I believe. I think it does better than the cliche stuff from Drones, and I would definitely go back to this one before the Second Law and before Drones. But if you don't like that electronic feel, or you kind of were turned off of it from the Second Law, you might not be interested in this one either. I will say it does a lot more interesting ideas with it than Second Law. So I would say give it a chance. If you love Muse, you're definitely going to love this album. At least I think so. I know that a lot of people have felt differently. But me, I really, really like this album. I'll definitely go back to it. There's a lot of really catchy songs on here. I would say first, if you were on the fence, listen to The Dark Side. Listen to Thought Mutation. Listen to Dig Down. And listen to Something Human. That spans the range of what this album's going to feel like. And if you like it, then go for it. It's a really fun album. It's not that long. And I'll definitely be coming back to it. But that is my time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this album or this album review, hit that like button. Tell me what you love or what you hate about this album. Subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I implore you to do so you can watch more of these. What the heck are you doing if you're not doing that? Click the bell in the middle so that you can also be notified of when I put out more amazing album reviews like this. And just keep on watching and sharing my videos. So later this week, I'll be coming back with another Are You In from one of my favorite bands of all time. And then it'll be the second part of the Digging Through Discography with Mumford & Sons and another Are You In. But until then, this is The Music Fan, and I am signing off.